Hi everyone, it's Roger here from what's on DisneyPlus.com. A quick news update for you guys on Black Widow and Disney Plus Premier Access. But before we get into any of that, make sure you do hit that subscribe button to keep up with the latest Disney Plus news. So as we all know, Black Widow was originally supposed to be released back in May 2020, but with 2020, everything went out the window and it got pushed back to May 2021. Now we are only literally like 2-3 months away from the release of that film, and a lot of people are kind of going, is it going to be released? Is it going to be delayed? What's going to happen with it? Now, we've got Raya and the Last Dragon is the next big release from Disney. They're going to be sending it out to cinemas and also Disney Plus Premier Access for $29.99 from March the 5th. And there's a lot of questions now about what's going to happen with Black Widow. Now, during the recent quarterly investors call, Bob Chapek was asked if they're going to be doing something similar with Black Widow, where he said,
in terms of Mulan, I think the best thing I can say about Mulan is that it was successful to the extent that we're also using that strategy on Raya. So the individual decisions that we talked about in the future, in some films we'll take them theatrically, and some films we'll take them theatrically plus Disney Premier Access, as is the case with Raya and was the case with Mulan. And in some cases we'll take a direct-to-service. It's going to be dependent, though, on what our slate of titles are and whether we think that we need to put something on the service for those particular guests, or whether this is something that we could use as another data point in our exploration of Premier Access day and date with theatrical. So it's really about flexibility, and we're going to steer our decision making over time given what information that we get from our guests and our subscriber base on what they prefer. Right. So I'm going to go back to the word flexibility because we had made a reference at the investor conference that Black Widow was going to be a theatrical release, and we are still intending it to be a theatrical release. But again, we are going to be watching very carefully the reopening of theaters and the consumer sentiment in terms of desire to go back to theaters to see whether that strategy needs to be revisited. But as of now, the strategy is to continue on with the theatrical release, and we'll be watching very, very carefully.
Now, I think the term there is flexible, and that's something that they're going to have to keep an eye on, because I think it really depends on how many cinemas are open at the point in May. For example, in the US, they've still got cinemas closed down in California and New York, and they're the two biggest markets in the US. If they're still shut down by then, they might decide to go with the Premier Access route. For example, here in Europe as well, there's a massive problem. Here in the UK, we're in a lockdown. All cinemas are completely shut down and can't open, so they just couldn't be able to release them, and we don't know yet now when that might be a change, so they might have to make a decision individually. To me personally, I think Black Widow will end up being released in cinemas and also on Disney Plus Premier Access. Disney might not want to do it, but they can't keep delaying it anymore. They could push it back a little bit to kind of take up the Shang-Chi release, but the question is how many of us are going to be given our vaccination by them. There's also the other thing as well. I mean, at the minute, like in most countries, they're still kind of going through the high-risk groups, so therefore, even if they start getting to the mass population, it takes 3 or 4 weeks for the vaccine to take effect, so therefore, it might not be ready for Black Widow. So I still think they're going to end up doing it this way. I think that it really depends on how well Raya and the Last Dragon does on there. They did state during the investors call that Mulan did good enough. They were happy with the results, and they're trying it again with Raya. They're just collecting data, seeing how things go. They just said that they're going to be very flexible. I don't think Disney are at a point now where they can keep shifting things around too much. Now, there are some other movies that they could do things different with. For example, like Cruella, which is set to arrive in cinemas in May. They've done no trailer for it, they've done no publicity, so they've not spent any money promoting that movie. So therefore, they can shift that over to Disney Plus if they wanted to, or to Premier Access. And it's a lot easier for them than, say, for example, with like the Jungle Cruise or Black Widow. So that's something they can kind of play with. It's probably why we're not going to see like a Shang-Chi trailer until they are completely ready to go on that one and have full faith in what they're doing, because they can obviously push it back if they need to. But yeah, things aren't quite going the way we all would hope. But Black Widow and Premier Access, it's probably not too far off being announced. I would suspect by the end of next month they're going to have to make a decision, yes or no. But the fact that they keep saying flexible, they're still adamant on doing a cinema release, which makes sense. You know, they still want to push forward on that one. They don't want to alienate cinemas anymore. But realistically, What do you think? Thank you very much for watching this video. Make sure you go check us out over at whatsondisneyplus.com. Like, follow, and subscribe. Also, a huge thank you to all of our supporters over on Patreon and also on our YouTube channel memberships. And I shall see you guys in another video. Laters.